Hi everyone, and welcome to the tutorial. Today I will be demonstrating how to graft your stitches together using the Kitchener stitch technique. This is a method where you join two sets of stitches together and it creates an invisible seam. This technique is particularly useful for things like where you want to create a smooth rounded shape, such as when you're finishing off a toe at the end of a sock, or if you want to create an enclosed shape. For instance, if you want to turn a scarf into a cowl. So for this technique, you need to have two sets of stitches. They need to be sitting on two needles that are held parallel, and those needles need to be pointing towards the right. You need to cut your working yarn. Here it is attached to the back needle. And make sure you leave a nice long tail of that yarn. Exactly how much yarn you'll need is always a little bit of a guess because it depends a lot on what the yarn is, what your needle size is, and how many stitches you're grafting together. So just make sure you're nice and generous with it so that you avoid running out halfway through. So to set up our Kitchener stitch, we first need to work a partial Kitchener stitch over the first stitch on both our front and back needle, and then we'll get into the rhythm of properly grafting all of the following stitches together. So to work our first little bit, our first setup of the Kitchener stitch, we need to insert our tapestry needle into the first stitch on the front needle as if to purl and pull the yarn through, and then into the first stitch on the back needle as if to knit and pull the yarn through. So we'll see what that looks like. I've got my tapestry needle here and I've threaded what was my working yarn that's now been cut through the tapestry needle. So first we insert into the first stitch on the front needles as if to purl. So from back to front, we insert the tapestry needle, pull it through and pull that cut end of yarn through as well. And then we insert it knitwise as if to knit. So from front to back into the first stitch on the back needle and also pull the working yarn through that. So that's just attached our front and back needles together. Right, so now we're ready to get into the proper rhythm of Kitchener stitching our stitches together. Your written instructions for this technique will generally read something like the following. Insert tapestry needle into first stitch on front needle as if to knit and pull yarn through, then slip stitch from needle. Insert tapestry needle into what was the second stitch on the front needle as if to purl and pull yarn through. Do not slip from needle. Then insert tapestry needle into first stitch on back needle as if to purl and pull yarn through, then slip stitch from needle. Insert tapestry needle into what was the second stitch on the back needle as if to knit and pull yarn through. Do not slip from needle. So it's sort of what we just did, but in the proper order for how we will graft all of these stitches together. So the first thing is to insert the tapestry needle into the first stitch on the front needle as if to knit, and we also slip that stitch from the needle. So that's it there. We then insert the tapestry needle into what was the second stitch on the front needle as if to purl, and pull the working yarn through, but do not slip it from that needle yet. We then go to the back needle and we insert the tapestry needle into the first stitch as if to purl and slip that stitch from the needle. And then we insert the tapestry needle into what was the second stitch as if to knit and pull the needle and yarn through. And there you'll hopefully see we've started to graft our stitches together. To graft your remaining stitches together, you just continue to repeat those steps until all of them have been slipped from the needle. So insert the tapestry needle into the first stitch on front needle as if to knit, slip it off, insert tapestry needle into what was the second stitch as if to purl, don't slip it yet. Insert tapestry needle into first stitch on back needle as if to purl and slip it from the needle. Insert tapestry needle into what was the second stitch as if to knit and don't slip it from the needle. And there you'll start to see we've created an invisible join between the two sets of stitches. It just looks like another row of knitting in your work. As you go, you'll want to just adjust the tension of the new row that you're creating to make sure it looks nice and neat and you don't have any bulgy bits. Insert tapestry needle into first stitch on front needle as if to knit, and slip it from the needle, pull yarn through, insert tapestry needle into what was the second stitch as if to purl and pull yarn through, don't slip it from the needle, insert tapestry needle into first stitch on back needle as if to purl, slip it off, insert tapestry needle into what was the second stitch as if to knit, and don't slip it off yet. So now I've gotten to the end of my Kitchener stitching. As I mentioned, you just want to make sure that you've adjusted the tension to make sure it matches the rest of your knitting and that it looks all nice and neat and invisible. And you'll now have just one stitch remaining on each of your needles. You can either just slip them straight from the needle as they've been half worked, there's some yarn that's been threaded through them so they shouldn't unravel, or I really like to just finish them off by doing one more half Kitchener stitch over each. So I insert the tapestry needle into the first stitch on the front needle as if to knit and slip it off the needle, pull the yarn through, my tail in the way there, and insert into the first stitch on the back needle as if to purl and pull yarn through. And there we've finished grafting all our stitches together. You then just need to weave in your ends and you're all done. That's how you work the Kitchener stitch method. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the tutorial video, please feel free to subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, do leave them below.